咱NATWA 有 Kelly Tsai 为咱带来 spoken word performance. Wai-Puo digging a hole to China and Lili's hands. 必然啦，你敢知影这是啥物表的？
歹势，这阮老古董，阮唔知影这是啥物。毋过吼，我看到这 digging a hole to China， 哇，我心头鼻做开哦，我喙笑目笑。
你讲是要甲 China 甲挖一坑哦？
坑
哦，安尼哦。
来
，Ladies and gentlemen, Kelly.
大家好. Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Oh, I need a little bit more. How's everybody doing tonight? I have to apologize. I am a second gen, and my Taiwanese is like non-existent, so this is all going to be in English. Is that all right with everybody? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm a spoken word artist, which my mom's joke is always like, you know, it's not only Asian people who don't know what you do, American people don't know what you do either. But basically what it is, what I do is I do performance poetry. So I have 3 poems for you guys tonight, if that's all right? Okay, cool. So this first poem I want to dedicate to anyone in the house who's a grandmother. So make some noise. The grandmothers. Because I know grandmothers really, it's funny, we always think progress goes forward, right? Women's empowerment as time goes on, things get more progressive. But when I think about the things that my grandmothers had to live through, it really, really humbles me a great deal. So this, I unfortunately, so a little bit about me. My dad's family is from Tainan, but my mom's family is from Shanghai originally, and then, you know, she grew up in Taipei, so I'm kind of like a halfie, you know what I mean? So, I know, because I know, like, yeah, so it's complicated, as we will explore through my poems. But, yeah, so this, I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to get to know my my father's parents because they passed away when he was quite young. But this first poem I dedicate to my Wai-Puo, my maternal grandmother. Wai-Puo shuffled tiny feet from the foyer to the living room, clicked on the TV, brushed her steel black hair into stiff wings. Outside, a burning heat. Chicago in August. Wai-Puo buttoned her shirt with arthritic fingers, removed her teeth, dropped them in a glass of water. They bounced like she did, from one child's home to the next. Jinghua in Chicago, Suhua in DC, Dading in Cincinnati, Weihua in San Francisco, Dai and Dazhou in Taipei. So far from being that baby girl that she was in Shanghai, the one who kicked the cloths off of her bound feet, dove into the marriage bed of her husband, birthed 6 skinny children from 7 sickly pregnancies. Children born to survive every war, running first from the Japanese, then from the communists, exiled to live in Taiwan, where Wai-Puo rolled out dumpling dough into thin-skinned flaps, cupped each square in her palm, made every dumpling precious, another flower blooming, its weight anchored in the center of her hand. She'd smear its pocket with meat, twist its hot clothes, and repeat until it was enough to feed 6 children, 1 husband, 1 sister, 1 brother-in-law, and eventually herself. Wai-Puo stuffed bracelets and anklets on my baby hands and feet, laced my young neck in red thread and pure gold. Wai-Puo saved my umbilical cord and let go of me, the child that language and migration would steal from her. It is this woman's skin that covers me, her cataract eyes that watch me from above. That's my first poem. Yeah, you know, a really funny thing about grandmas too, my dad said he voted for Barack Obama partly because Barack Obama, like was raised by his grandmother. So I was like, so give it up one more time for our grandmas. And our grandpas too, right? But I was like, I wonder if anyone's studying that demographic, the raised by your grandma vote. But exploring, you know, I know they were kind of making a joke about, you know, this poem of digging a hole to China. This is a piece I actually wrote when I went back with so my mother left, her father was a politician. So as we all know, in history, they had to leave. And we all know, of course, in terms of the horrific things that happened in Taiwan during that time period. A funny story about that too is, you know, my parents moved here in 1960 and 1969, and my mom said, well, you know, it was kind of controversial back then for me and your dad to get married, so I figured we'd go to the United States where everyone would think we were Chinese, and it would be all right. So because of American ignorance, you have me, so give it up one time for American ignorance, yes. But this is a piece that I just wrote about that experience, because I think this is always the question of thinking about what's the relationship of people who are from the mainland who live in Taiwan, people who are Aboriginal, people who are Hakka, and then the relationship to people on the mainland as it stands. You know, because I know for my mother, she was always afraid to be friends with people from the mainland because she thought they were all communists and all this kind of stuff. So it's very complicated. So this is a piece I just wrote about that. It's called Digging a Hole to China. 1. We are at war with ourselves. 700 missiles point sharp noses across the Taiwan Strait. My mother runs delicate fingers over plum candy, sesame bars, dates mashed with walnuts at the sweet shop in Shanghai for the first time in 60 years. These her child tongue remembers. Before revolution, before exile. As she stuffs a plastic bag to its brim for the 17-hour flight back home to Chicago. 2. The engraver of the Great Wall didn't even turn all the way around before he muttered, "Oh, Hua Chao," and continued to hammer my father's name, my mother's name, my name, the day's date into the piece of granite before him. What kind of people are we to think that we can build anything big enough to keep our culture intact? That we can be impervious to change? That we can shut the world out? 3. Carol and I are useless, American-born, hackney-tongued. We listen to my father explain why each of these places are so important. So many poets, so many temples, so many gods. I can only read the waving of the lotus fields. The old women dressed in black reaching their hands towards the sun. The children walking 2 by 2, gripped in each other's palms with superhero backpacks on. 4. Tiananmen Square is empty of ghosts, empty of blood. Just stretches of gray stone buildings and packs of postcards sold for $1. Soldiers tread lightly past me in green polyester pants striped with yellow, their shoulders marked in red. Their faces are younger than mine. We are not so different, I realize. I press a kiss to my crossed fingers, untwist them, and let that kiss ride on air. We survive all of our histories through prayer, through prayer. Everybody doing all right? It's all right I do one more poem for you guys? I know this is like a very new kind of weird experience for people sometimes to see poetry perform, but this piece I actually wrote because, you know, it's interesting here in the United States when we say we're Asian American, that means everybody, you know? So my friends who are Filipino or Vietnamese or Indian or Sri Lankan, we all feel like we're one thing here. So it's always interesting to me when I go back to Taiwan, because in Taiwan, people in Taiwan are not thinking that they have anything to do with people in Korea, you know what I mean? Or like people from the Philippines or people from Indonesia, you know, you're not like, you know, that's my friend, that's my buddy, because we're all Asian together. But I think that's an interesting and powerful experience we have here in the United States, to come together in ways that we wouldn't have before. So when I went back to Taiwan, I actually became really good friends with a woman who works for my aunt, a woman named Lili, who's Filipina and who's from Iloilo. And she's working as an overseas contract worker in Taiwan. Everybody's familiar with this, right? Yes? Because like we all know, this is very common, right, for people from other countries to be working in Taiwan. So this piece I dedicate to her. This piece is called Lily's Hands. Lily's hands are small, red, and cracked. She uses them to slice the fish from the market, to smash garlic with the edge of a cleaver, to spin the tap for the cold water, to soak the bitter melon and suck it of its dry newspaper taste. Lily's hands wipe down the counters with lightning speed, piles buns soft with heat onto a plate. Lily's hands dash sesame oil, soy sauce, ginger into the steaming wok, which burns blush onto her cheeks. Lily's hands cube the tofu, cure the chicken feet, and wipe the stains from my auntie's toilet. Lily's hands tug at the edge of her t-shirt, making jokes in English, Tagalog, and Mandarin, pretending not to understand the arguments, pretending not to notice. Lily's hands massage my uncle's feet, bloated from a lifetime of a soldier's walk. She cracks, contorts, and twists his soles as he scowls, TV watching Stephen Chow kung fu chop his way over a wall. Lily's hands cradle her cell phone to her ear to hear the voice of her husband in Iloilo, the one that calls her mama, and cracks on airmailed karaoke tapes of American love songs, American pop songs. Lily's hands rub acetone over fingernails and keep her fed. In Manila, Iloilo, Singapore, Taipei, from bitchy house mothers to wicked roommates, her fighting sisters and runaway friends, Lily's hands know how to work. Lily's hands ball into tiny fists as she pulls the blanket to her chin in the back room on the cot next to the laundry machine because she has a good employer. My aunt who doesn't rape or beat or stab or cut her wages. My aunt who depends on her for her life, to keep her family together as well as her kitchen, to make food for people who otherwise would never come, to give to an old woman who often forgets how to. Chanel, Gucci, plastic surgery, and golf. Lily's hands pray to the gods in the church, the wind, and the Filipino government. Smiling, she proclaims, I must fight for so many stories she grips in these hands. So many challenges to the pulse. She knows she's gonna be there when her contract is up with her man, her baby, her motorcycle, her house, her sugar factory in Iloilo, the day her hands can finally work for themselves. Thank you all so much.